My world shattered the moment those 5 words seared themselves into my vision. I didn't sign up for this. They floated menacingly beneath a screenshot of my utterly barren joint bank account. I'm Bruce, a 35-year-old, the heart and soul of Precision Motors, my own auto repair shop in the bustling city of Olympia. Just a few hours prior, I was adrift in a doctor's office, assaulted by a barrage of chilling terms. Hodgkin's lymphoma, treatment protocols, and prognosis percentages. Stage 2, a long, arduous battle lay ahead, but a winnable one. From the hospital parking lot, my thumb hovered over Mildred's name. I called, my voice a strained whisper, asking her to meet me at our apartment. We needed to talk. She was swamped, she said, buried under errands, promising to be back later. But when I stepped into our home, a chilling silence hung in the air. Half of her closet was starkly empty. Her travel bag was gone, and the framed photo of us from our honeymoon in Santorini had vanished from the bedside table. Then the text arrived, accompanied by the cold, hard proof. She'd siphoned off our entire savings, a hefty $42,000 we'd painstakingly accumulated over 6 years into an account solely bearing her name. I stared at the screen, a full minute blurring into an eternity. My fingers, almost on their own accord, typed out a 2-word reply, "Stay safe." I dropped my phone onto the worn leather of the sofa, grabbed a craft beer from the fridge, and settled onto our small balcony, watching the setting sun paint the Olympian sky in hues of orange and purple. No tears, no rage-fueled outburst, just a profound, disorienting shift in the very ground beneath my feet. The cancer, I realized, was a tangible enemy I could fight. The betrayal, that was a different beast entirely. Brendan, my neighbor from the adjacent unit, a retired history professor with a perpetually inquisitive gaze, leaned over our shared balcony railing. "Everything all right, Bruce? Saw Mildred tear out of here earlier, car packed to the brim." "Just got some health news," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "She didn't take it too well." Brendan nodded slowly, his eyes kind, not pressing for details. "Well, if you need anything at all, just let me know. My wife, Laura, makes an excellent lentil soup, perfect for comforting the soul." "Appreciate that, Brendan," I managed, a flicker of gratitude cutting through the numbness. After he retreated, I went inside and retrieved the thick, legal-sized folder my uncle, Dominic, had given me last month. Dominic, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney who'd recently scaled back his practice, had always emphasized preparedness. When my grandmother passed in March, leaving me that serene piece of land nestled in the Cascade foothills, Dominic had meticulously guided me through the convoluted paperwork. "Everyone needs their affairs in order, Bruce," he'd asserted, his gaze piercing, "especially when you're bonded to another. It's about mutual protection." I'd already begun the process. My will was updated. I'd even listed Mildred as a co-owner on my prized possession, a meticulously restored '72 Charger, though I hadn't yet filed the final paperwork with the Department of Motor Vehicles. And foresightfully, I'd established a separate account at a different bank for the eventual proceeds from the land sale. All of it, every single step, was intended to safeguard us, to safeguard her. The irony, I mused, was a bitter pill to swallow. I picked up my phone and dialed Dominic. When he answered, I simply said, "Remember our conversation about getting my affairs in order? I need to make some significant revisions." A beat of silence stretched between us. "Is everything all right, Bruce?" His voice held a note of concern. "No," I admitted, a raw honesty in my tone. "But it will be." I first encountered Mildred at my friend Donald's wedding in Seattle back in 2018. She was a marketing analyst at a thriving tech firm downtown, brilliant, quick-witted, and stunningly beautiful. We moved in together a mere 7 months later and married the following year. The initial years were idyllic. We scrupulously saved for a down payment on a place, eventually finding a charming, if slightly dilapidated, row house in a burgeoning neighborhood. Weekends became a blur of my hammering and sawing, replacing tired fixtures, meticulously refinishing floors, and upgrading the plumbing. Mildred, with her keen eye for aesthetics, would select paint swatches and furniture, later posting triumphant before and after photos online, proudly labeling us a renovation triumph. My father passed when I was 15, leaving my mother to raise my sister and me on a modest librarian's salary. She instilled in us the invaluable lessons of hard work, living within our means, and always having a contingency plan. After my mother passed away 3 years ago, that backup plan ethos became an even more central tenet of my life. Mildred, however, hailed from a starkly different background. Her parents, affluent and influential, had seemingly handed her everything on a silver platter tuition for a prestigious university, a new luxury car every few years, even the down payment for our house. They never quite grasped why she chose to marry a mechanic. Her father, a prominent corporate lawyer, would invariably introduce me as Mildred's husband rather than by my actual name, a subtle but persistent slight that always pricked. Looking back, the fissures in our foundation were evident long before my devastating diagnosis. About 4 months ago, Mildred began broaching the idea of relocating to Vancouver. She spoke of superior opportunities there. I resisted. My business was thriving, our friends were here, and the house was nearly paid off. She'd grow quiet after those conversations, a tangible distance settling between us. She started spending more and more time with friends I'd never met, often returning late with an air of polite aloofness. Then came the insidious, subtle comments that, despite their quiet delivery, stung more profoundly than any shouted accusation. Don't you ever wish to pursue something more ambitious with your life than simply fixing engines? My university roommate's husband just secured a partnership at his firm. They're currently building a vacation villa on the coast. Sometimes I find myself wondering what my life would have been like if I'd moved to San Francisco after graduation instead of settling here. I, in my blissful ignorance, dismissed these overtures. I rationalized that every marriage encountered rough patches, that we would, inevitably, navigate our way through them. Even when I discovered a business card for a sleek apartment complex in Vancouver tucked discreetly into her purse, I didn't confront her. Instead, I quietly contacted my Uncle Dominic to discuss updating our legal paperwork. I began, systematically, to document our assets, just in case. 2 weeks later, I visited the doctor for what I initially dismissed as a lingering cold. That's when the swollen lymph nodes were discovered, followed by the blood test, the biopsy, the agonizing wait. The night before my final diagnosis, Mildred and I shared a silent dinner at our kitchen table. She prattled on about a colleague's recent promotion, her voice a superficial hum. I watched her face, a desperate hope flickering within me that she would somehow perceive the burgeoning fear in my own. "Everything all right?" she finally inquired, her gaze fleeting. "Yeah," I lied, a word tasting like ash. "Just a bit drained." She nodded, resuming her meal, offering no further probe. No genuine look. That, I now understand, should have been my ultimate revelation. 3 days after Mildred's abrupt departure, I commenced chemotherapy. The first session struck me with an unexpected, brutal force. The compassionate nurse, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle touch, guided me to a plush recliner, hooked up the Roman 4, and asked if my ride was waiting. "Took a ride share," I mumbled, my voice hoarse. "My wife's out of town." She offered a look I couldn't quite decipher, a mixture of pity and understanding, then patted my arm. "The first one is always the toughest. You'll get through this, Bruce." I merely nodded, not trusting my voice. I hadn't breathed a word to anyone except Brendan about Mildred being gone for good, not just out of town. Somehow, uttering the truth aloud would crystallize it, make it undeniably real. More shameful. When I arrived home, a casserole dish sat on my front porch, still warm, accompanied by a note from Brendan's wife, Laura. "Made too much. Enjoy." I knew, instinctively, it was a compassionate lie, but the gesture, nonetheless, warmed a corner of my desolate heart. I attempted to eat, but my stomach rebelled, refusing to keep anything down. I eventually found myself curled on the cold bathroom floor, drenched in sweat, trembling uncontrollably, alone. That night, I called my sister, Nancy, in Portland. I confessed everything: the cancer, Mildred's desertion, the stolen money. She immediately wanted to drive up. I urged her to wait. I needed to impose some semblance of order on the chaos first. The following morning, I contacted my bank. The stark truth hit me like a physical blow. Mildred had emptied our joint accounts a mere 40 minutes after I'd called her from the doctor's office, before she even knew the full extent of my diagnosis. She simply knew I was ill, and that, it seemed, was sufficient reason for her to flee. Something deep within me shifted. The pervasive sadness solidified into something entirely different. Not exactly anger. Purpose. I drove to my Uncle Dominic's house that afternoon. I brought with me a veritable mountain of documents. All our financial statements, property records, every single scrap of paper that detailed our shared lives. "She can't just abscond with your money like that, Bruce," Dominic declared, his brow furrowed as he scanned the statements. "Joint account," I reminded him, my voice flat. "Her name's on it, too." Dominic removed his reading glasses, his gaze steady on mine. "Bruce, what she did wasn't merely cold-hearted. It borders on illegal. Taking all the money when she's fully aware of your illness, fully aware of the impending medical bills. Can I actually prove that she knew?" He pondered for a moment, a glint of legal cunning in his eyes. "Phone records would definitively show you called her immediately after your appointment. The bank statement meticulously records the precise time she initiated the transfer. If you can firmly establish your diagnosis date." I pulled out my phone, displaying the infamous text she'd sent. "I didn't sign up for this." Dominic's expression hardened. "That, my boy, is pretty damning evidence." We spent the next 3 grueling hours meticulously charting a strategy. The charger title change, the impending land sale, my medical insurance intricacies and projected treatment costs, documenting everything, every last detail, with meticulous precision. When I finally departed Dominic's house, my phone vibrated. An email from Mildred's cousin, Olivia, a kind-hearted soul who had always treated me with genuine warmth. "Bruce, I just heard what transpired. I am so incredibly sorry. I cannot fathom what Mildred is thinking. I just wanted you to know that I am here for you. Truly, if you need anything at all." I stared at the message for a long, quiet moment. Then my fingers moved, almost instinctively, to type a reply. "Does Mildred know about my diagnosis?" Olivia's response arrived almost instantly. "Yes. She informed everyone that you have cancer, but claimed she couldn't cope with it and needed a fresh start. My entire family is utterly shocked. This isn't right, Bruce." I thanked her, a knot of dread loosening slightly, and put my phone away. I drove home, the windows rolled down, the summer air a cool balm on my face. For the first time since the diagnosis, a profound sense of clarity washed over me. I knew, with an unshakable certainty, exactly what I needed to do. 2 weeks into my arduous treatment regimen, a formal letter arrived from Mildred's lawyer. She was seeking a divorce. The grounds cited were irreconcilable differences. She requested to be formally removed from the mortgage, but brazenly demanded half the equity in the house. There was no mention, not a single word, of the substantial sum she'd already taken. Nothing about my critical illness. I immediately took the letter to Dominic. "Quite audacious, wouldn't you say?" he remarked, scanning the document with an amused glint in his eye. "She drains your entire savings, fully aware of your illness, then has the gall to demand half the house as well." "What's my next move?" I asked, my voice tight. "Don't respond just yet," Dominic advised, leaning back in his chair. "Let's observe how far she intends to push this." The very next day, a text message popped up from a number I didn't recognize. "Bruce, it's Mildred. This is my new number. I understand you're upset, but we simply must resolve this. My lawyer explicitly states I'm entitled to half the house." I didn't dignify it with a response. 3 days later, another text, equally as infuriating. "Bruce, resorting to childish behavior won't help either of us. I know you're going through things, but I have rights too, you know." Going through things? As if cancer were merely a bad mood I needed to get over. I blocked the number without a second thought. My third chemotherapy session hit me with an unprecedented ferocity. I couldn't keep any food down for 2 agonizing days, losing a staggering 12 pounds in the process. My sister, Nancy, finally arrived from Portland, staying for a full week. She meticulously cleaned the house, stocked my freezer with nourishing, pre-made meals, and faithfully drove me to every appointment. The day before she departed, another letter from Mildred's lawyer arrived. More outrageous demands, more veiled threats about what I owed her. Nancy, her face flushed with fury, read it aloud. "After what she's done, she's fortunate you haven't taken her to court for the money she outright stole." "We'll get there," I replied, a steely resolve hardening my voice. The following week, a certified letter from the bank landed in my mailbox. Mildred had attempted to remove my name from our joint credit cards, but was thwarted, thankfully, as my signature was required. She had also tried to access our safe deposit box, the one containing the deed to the house, the meticulously restored charger title, and my grandmother's original will. The bank, adhering to protocol, had denied her access when she couldn't produce the second key, my key. I called Dominic immediately, my blood boiling. "She's growing increasingly desperate," he observed, his voice calm, likely realizing she left a few crucial loose ends. "What's my next move?" I pressed, eager for action. "Let's close that safe deposit box immediately. Transfer everything to a new one, solely in your name. And Bruce, I believe it's high time to file those title changes for the charger." I took a sick day, though. In truth, every day felt like a sick day now. I went to the bank, closed the old box, and opened a new, secure one. Then I drove straight to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and with a sense of grim satisfaction, I formally removed Mildred's name from the charger's title, a title that, fortunately, had never been fully finalized with her name on it. That night, another text from yet another unfamiliar number. "You changed the charger title. That car is half mine. Bruce, you put my name on it?" I stared at the message, a chill creeping down my spine. How in the world did she know already? I had only filed the paperwork that very morning. Then it clicked with a sickening thud. She had someone on the inside, someone at the DMV, or perhaps even the bank. Someone was actively watching my every move, feeding her information. I immediately called Dominic. "I think she has help," I explained, my voice low. "Someone is telling her everything I'm doing." Dominic was quiet for a moment, a thoughtful pause. "Her father possesses extensive connections. I wouldn't put it past him to be pulling strings." "What do I do?" I asked, a new wave of frustration washing over me. "Feed them disinformation," Dominic replied, a mischievous note in his voice. "Let's set a trap, Bruce." The very next day, I called the real estate agent who had been handling the sale of my grandmother's land. I asked her to temporarily halt the process. During the call, I made sure to casually mention that I was actively exploring other options for liquidating assets, speaking loudly enough for anyone listening in to hear. Then I called my investment bank, where I maintained a small 401k from a previous job. I inquired about the procedures for early withdrawal, making it abundantly clear that I was considering all options due to mounting medical bills. I then settled back, patiently waiting to see what Mildred would do next. 2 days later, her lawyer sent a new, revised letter, now demanding a portion of any proceeds from the sale of inherited property and a fair division of all retirement accounts. Dominic, reviewing the letter, broke into a wide, triumphant smile. She took the bait. "Bruce, Now what? I asked, a flicker of excitement igniting within me. Now, he said, his smile widening, we show our cards. I spent the next month singularly focused on my health. The treatments were, undeniably, brutal, but my doctors seemed cautiously optimistic. My hair was gone. I'd lost a significant 30 pounds, but my blood counts were steadily improving. Nancy continued to visit every other weekend, a comforting, steadfast presence. Brendan and Laura, my kind neighbors, checked on me daily, their quiet support a lifeline. My boss, Mr. Henderson, at Precision Motors cut my hours, bless his soul, but steadfastly kept my health insurance active. I was, miraculously, surviving both the insidious cancer and Mildred's calculated departure. Some days were undoubtedly harder than others. Some nights I woke abruptly, my hand reaching instinctively for a presence that was no longer there. But mostly, I remained resolutely focused on the next step, the next arduous treatment, the next calculated move in the elaborate, high-stakes chess game Mildred had initiated. Dominic called on a Tuesday morning, his voice brimming with a quiet triumph. We've obtained the documents from her bank. Bruce, care to hazard a guess as to what she did with your money? Tell me, I urged, my heart pounding in my chest. She transferred it to a new personal account, then immediately wrote a check for a staggering $30,000 to her parents. I sank onto the nearest chair, a wave of disbelief washing over me. Why in the world would she do that? My educated guess, Dominic mused. She was trying to hide it, to make it infinitely harder to trace or recover. Can she even do that? I asked, incredulous. No, Bruce, Dominic stated, a triumphant note entering his voice. That, my friend, is the beauty of it. She transferred joint funds during a known medical crisis, then brazenly attempted to conceal the money through a third party. The judge, mark my words, is going to despise that. I considered his words carefully. I don't want a protracted court battle, Dominic. I simply don't possess the energy for that right now. Trust me on this, Bruce. It won't escalate that far. Once her lawyer sees the irrefutable evidence we possess, they will settle. 2 days later, as I was leaving my treatment session, a familiar car caught my eye in the hospital parking lot. A sleek, silver Mercedes-Benz. Mildred's father, Mr. Ernest. He sat behind the wheel, his gaze fixed on the hospital entrance, watching for me. I walked directly to his car, my steps measured and deliberate. I rapped sharply on the window. He slowly rolled it down, his face a meticulously composed lawyer's mask, a mask I knew all too well. Bruce, you look unwell. Cancer tends to have that effect, I replied, my voice devoid of warmth. Why are you here, Mr. Ernest? Mildred is concerned, he stated, his voice smooth, devoid of genuine emotion. She says you're being utterly unreasonable about the divorce proceedings. I almost laughed aloud. Is that what she calls it? Unreasonable? She's prepared to be quite generous, given your situation, a fair division of assets, including the house. After she took every single cent we had, after she abandoned me the very day I was diagnosed. He had the decency to look momentarily uncomfortable, a fleeting flicker of disquiet. She was upset, Bruce, emotional. People make mistakes in moments of distress. This wasn't a mistake, Mr. Ernest, I countered, my voice firm. It was a deliberate choice. He sighed, a practiced, weary sound. Bruce, please be practical. You're ill. You desperately need to focus on getting better, not fighting a legal battle you simply cannot afford. That's when the realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. They believed I was desperate. They thought I was financially ruined after Mildred had systematically emptied our accounts. They assumed I would meekly accept any settlement, however paltry, just to avoid a fight. They had absolutely no idea about the impending land sale. No idea I'd shrewdly removed her name from the charger title before she could even contemplate claiming it. No idea I'd meticulously documented every single piece of evidence. Tell Mildred that I'll have my comprehensive response to her lawyer by Friday, I stated, turning crisply to leave. Bruce, he called after me, his voice holding a subtle warning. Don't make this any harder than it needs to be. I didn't look back. On Thursday, I met with Dominic and the formidable real estate lawyer he'd brought in, Miss Carolyn Calvin, a sharp, no-nonsense woman with an impeccable reputation. We meticulously reviewed everything the damning bank records unequivocally showing Mildred's immediate withdrawal of funds directly after my cancer diagnosis, her callous text message, the irrefutable witness statement from Olivia confirming Mildred's full knowledge of my illness, the check written directly to her parents. This, Bruce, is a crystal-clear case of financial abandonment, Miss Calvin declared, her voice precise and unwavering, coupled with the audacious attempt to conceal marital assets. No judge, I assure you, will look kindly upon this. So, what's our move? I asked, my gaze fixed on hers. We file our own comprehensive divorce action, she stated, her eyes gleaming with determination. We will irrefutably demonstrate abandonment during a critical medical crisis, flagrant financial malfeasance, and a blatant attempted concealment of funds. We will request full recovery of the missing funds, plus all associated legal fees. Will that actually work? I asked, a flicker of doubt still lingering. Miss Calvin smiled, a confident, knowing smile that put me at ease. I have, in my extensive career, never encountered a cleaner, more straightforward case, but I honestly don't believe it will even reach that stage. Once they fully comprehend the overwhelming evidence we possess, they will fold like a house of cards. And if they don't, I pressed, needing to know every contingency. Then we proceed to court, she stated, her voice firm, and she will lose everything including, most importantly, her reputation. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a nascent feeling akin to hope blossomed within me. On Friday morning, Miss Calvin sent our comprehensive response to Mildred's lawyer. It was a complete, meticulously detailed divorce filing, accompanied by every single piece of damning evidence, bank records, text messages, witness statements, irrefutable medical documentation. Everything was laid out in cold, hard, unambiguous detail. By noon, Mildred's lawyer had urgently requested an emergency meeting. That was remarkably swift, I commented to Dominic over the phone, a hint of satisfaction in my voice. They were completely unprepared for your level of ammunition, he replied, a chuckle in his voice. They genuinely believed you were too sick, too financially depleted, or too utterly beaten down to fight back effectively. The meeting was scheduled for Monday. I spent the entire weekend resting, meticulously preparing myself mentally for the confrontation. On Sunday night, a text message arrived from yet another new, unknown number. This is unbelievably cruel, Bruce. I made a mistake, I admit, but this is nothing short of vindictive. My parents simply cannot return the money right now. You are deliberately trying to destroy me. I stared at the screen, a surge of incredulity washing over me. Vindictive? I wasn't the one who had abandoned a critically ill spouse and shamelessly stolen our entire life savings. I wasn't the one hiding behind a phalanx of lawyers and her affluent parents. For the very first time, I texted back, my fingers moving with a quiet resolve. Actions have consequences. Monday morning, I met Dominic and Miss Calvin at her opulent office. They wanted me present, but firmly advised me to remain silent unless a question was directly addressed to me. Mildred arrived with her father and her lawyer, a gaunt man with ridiculously expensive glasses and a perpetually disdainful frown etched onto his face. She looked remarkably good, tanned, rested, as if the past few grueling months had been nothing more than a relaxing vacation for her, while I had been fighting, quite literally, for my life. She pointedly avoided my gaze. Her lawyer spoke first, his voice dripping with condescension. We have, of course, thoroughly reviewed your filing. While we fundamentally disagree with your highly subjective characterization of events, my client is, in a spirit of magnanimity, willing to negotiate a settlement to meticulously avoid any unnecessary conflict. Miss Calvin merely smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. Let me be abundantly clear. This is not, in any shape or form, a negotiation. This is merely a courtesy meeting before we inexorably proceed to court. Your client abandoned her husband upon receiving his critical cancer diagnosis, systematically emptied their joint accounts, audaciously attempted to hide those ill-gotten funds through her parents, and then, with breathtaking gall, demanded additional assets. We have, to the last detail, meticulously documented every single transgression. Mildred shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her father leaned forward, his face etched with concern. Surely, we can reach a reasonable... Your daughter transferred her husband's crucial medical emergency fund directly to you, Miss Calvin interjected, her voice cutting through the air like a surgical knife. We possess the irrefutable check records. Will you be returning those funds today, Mr. Ernest, or shall we, with appropriate legal procedure, add you to the lawsuit for knowingly accepting fraudulently obtained marital assets? The opulent room fell into a stunned, oppressive silence. Mildred's lawyer cleared his throat, a nervous, guttural sound. What, precisely, are you demanding? Miss Calvin, with calm, deliberate movements, laid out our terms. A full, immediate return of the $42,000. Mildred to unequivocally relinquish all claims to the house, the beloved charger, my grandmother's inherited land, and my retirement accounts. She would, moreover, assume complete responsibility for all legal fees incurred by both parties. In exchange, I would not pursue criminal charges for financial fraud and abandonment, which were clearly applicable. This is nothing short of robbery, Mildred's father muttered, his voice barely audible. No, Miss Calvin replied, her voice remaining remarkably calm, yet carrying the weight of unyielding authority. Robbery is precisely what your daughter perpetrated. This, Mr. Ernest, is justice. The meeting concluded with Mildred's lawyer requesting a mere 48 hours to consider our terms. As we exited the conference room, Mildred attempted to catch my eye, her face a mask of desperation. I walked past her without so much as a glance, my pace unwavering. In the elevator, Dominic squeezed my shoulder, a gesture of quiet pride. You handled yourself remarkably well in there, Bruce. I didn't do anything, I said, a profound weariness in my voice. Just sat there. Sometimes, he replied, his eyes crinkling at the corners. That's the hardest part of all. 2 days later, Miss Calvin called. Mildred had accepted all our terms. Her parents would return the full $42,000 within 30 days. She would sign the papers, relinquishing all claims to our property. It's over, Bruce, Miss Calvin announced, her voice tinged with finality. You won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like the abrupt cessation of something I once believed would endure forever, like slamming shut a book halfway through a compelling story. Still, for the first time since my diagnosis, a profound sense of peace settled over me, and I slept through the entire night. The settlement money arrived precisely 30 days later, a cashier's check for the full $42,000. I deposited it immediately, then called my oncologist's office, ready to make a substantial dent in my burgeoning medical bills. The nurse who had been with me from that very first, terrifying treatment, Serena, was at the front desk when I arrived. You're looking much better, Bruce, she observed, a warm smile gracing her lips. Your numbers came back excellent last week. Feeling better, too, I confessed, handing over the hefty check. She glanced at the impressive amount, her eyebrows arching slightly. Insurance finally came through. Something like that, I replied, offering a tight, knowing smile. The divorce was formally finalized a week later. I signed the papers at Miss Calvin's office, feeling strangely hollow. Not sadness, not anger, just done. What now, Bruce? Dominic inquired as we exited the imposing building. Finish treatment, I stated, looking out at the bustling city. Get better, then figure out what comes next. He nodded thoughtfully. The land sale should close next month. That's another $65,000, and if you ever decide to sell the charger— Not yet, I interrupted, a flicker of defiance in my eyes. I'm not quite ready to let go of absolutely everything. That evening, I sat on my small balcony with a glass of water, watching the sunset paint the Olympian sky in a blaze of color. The relentless nausea from the chemotherapy had finally begun to subside. My hair was starting to grow back patchy, yes, but undeniably there. The doctors were using encouraging phrases like responding well and promising outlook. My phone buzzed. An email from Olivia, Mildred's cousin. Bruce, I heard everything is finalized. I am so incredibly sorry for what my family put you through. Mildred's parents are selling their Lake Chelan cabin to cover the money they owe you. My aunt is absolutely furious, unfairly blaming you instead of Mildred. But I wanted you to know that some of us genuinely understand what truly transpired. I hope you are doing better. You deserve that much, and more. I put my phone away without replying. I no longer needed to engage with Mildred's family drama. It was time to focus solely on healing, on painstakingly rebuilding, on whatever lay ahead. 6 months later, my oncologist uttered the words I had been desperately yearning to hear: complete remission. I sat in her office, allowing the profound weight of the news to slowly, fully sink in. Not cured, she emphasized lymphoma could, regrettably, always return. But for now, the insidious cancer was gone. The battle, for now, was won. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Regular checkups, she replied, her smile radiant. Routine blood work. Scans every 6 months. But for now, Bruce, you go live your life. Embrace it. That evening, I made 2 calls. The first to Nancy, who shrieked with unadulterated joy, her voice cracking with emotion. Then to my good friend Jasper in Bend, who had, for years, been offering me a coveted position at his highly regarded custom auto shop. Still got space for me, Jasper? I asked, a tentative hope in my voice. Hell yes, Bruce, he roared, his enthusiasm infectious. When can you start? A month later, I sold the house in Olympia. I used the proceeds to purchase a charming, albeit small, cabin just outside Bend, 2 cozy bedrooms, a generously sized garage perfectly suited for my tools and, of course, the beloved charger, and breathtaking views of the majestic mountains from every single window. The day I drove out of Olympia, Brendan and Laura, my wonderful next-door neighbors, came to bid me farewell. Laura handed me a warm casserole for the long drive. I thanked them profusely for everything: the comforting meals, the thoughtful lawn mowing, the quiet, unwavering support they had offered when I needed it most. Are you truly okay, Bruce? Brendan asked, his eyes searching mine. Really? Genuinely okay? I paused, considering his question deeply. Getting there, I finally replied, a genuine smile touching my lips. 3 months into my new life in Oregon, a text message from an unknown number popped up on my phone. Mildred again? I heard you're in remission. I'm genuinely glad. I know you won't believe this, but I think about you often. I made a terrible mistake. Bruce, I was scared and unbelievably selfish. I am truly sorry for everything. I read it twice, weighing my options, considering whether to respond. In the end, I typed back just 4 simple words. I survived. Be well. Then I blocked the number, placed my phone away, and went to work on the charger. Not to sell it anymore, to keep it. To restore it again, meticulously, this time just for me. Some things, once irrevocably broken, simply cannot be fixed. But others can be painstakingly rebuilt, stronger and more resilient than before. I was one of them.